Hey there, welcome to the Superlite FAQ video. We're offering this as a supplementary guide to our Superlite Walkaround video. It's linked, I think, up here in the screen somewhere, or definitely in the description below. So basically what we wanted to do is go a little more in depth with folks that had questions that were specific to their vehicle mounting, maybe specific use case around the Superlite, or just generally wanted to learn more. So we're happy to jump into those questions now.
Does the Superlite have a rainfly or awning? How does it ventilate in the rain?
Yeah, so there's a couple different options for Superlite ventilation. The primary being basically these little side doors have a built-in provision we're calling the sidekick. So this little prop goes out, connects here, but the bigger and better option, especially for like kind of light rain where you really want a lot of ventilation, we have these guideline tie-outs. So you can basically take that, tie it to a rock, whatever, have tons of space, really ventilate well in the rain there, and keep dry.
Will the Superlite work for me if I'm 6'2"?
Yeah, so basically 6'2", 6'3" is kind of on the outer limit of the length. It is 90 inches long, which is right around 8.5 feet inside. But as it kind of tapers down to a narrower point, you do lose a little bit of foot room. It is comparable to pretty much every other wedge style tent on the market. But basically, if you're sleeping square on your back with your feet straight up, about 6'2" is the outer length of what you can fit. If you're used to sleeping kind of smaller, tighter spaces, especially if you're that tall, you might be used to it. You shouldn't have any issue fitting.
Can I mount solar to the Superlite?
So the Superlite is not designed to be used with solar, although it's probably quite easy to mount. There's a lot of like flexible Velcro back systems that you could slap onto the roof. We won't be offering any plug-and-play solar solutions though. For that, we'd really recommend taking a look at our platform product line, which also kind of functions more of as a roof rack than the Superlite does.
Can I mount an awning to the Superlite?
So the Superlite doesn't have any provisions for mounting awnings directly to it. That said, pretty much every rack that is going to accept the Superlite can have an awning mounted to it. So if you're gonna throw it on a Prinsu rack, a front runner rack, a Rhino rack, even like factory crossbars or Yakima Thule round bars and crossbars, most of those solutions have an awning that can interface into the rack, so it's not directly attached to the Superlite.
How will the Superlite hold up in winter conditions?
So it does really, really well as a cold weather tent. That said, the last word there is really important. It is a tent. So we have honeycomb core, top and bottom. So both the floor and the ceiling are that honeycomb, which has a lot more insulative value than just your typical fabric does. But because of that, it is still a single wall shelter basically. So with these little side kicks, it'll help with condensation in really cold weather with breath, stuff like that. I mean, if you're boiling water in there, obviously you're gonna wanna have some ventilation going on or something like that. But in terms of overall winter usage for a tent, it does great. It's definitely a 4-season tent, no question.
Does the Superlite come with a condensation mat?
So a condensation mat in this application isn't required. Basically, those condensation mats are for when you have some sort of thermal bridge, like an aluminum framing around your traditional kind of fold over rooftop tent shell. It causes basically thermal bridging from the outside to the inside. So if the temperature inside the tent is really warm, it'll condensate on that surface and cause moisture to happen. The condensation mat is this little cheap layer of fabric that basically allows airflow underneath so it can let that condensation evaporate. In this application, because it has a honeycomb core lower, it insulates better than pretty much everything else out there, and it's not required.
Can I purchase the ladder and mattress at a later date?
So you can absolutely purchase the ladder and mattress at a later date. We always recommend folks run their thermarest or kind of check out what they have, see if it'll work. It's always better not to have more stuff if you can avoid it. But the mattress is specifically designed for this application, fits really well, super comfortable. So we love it, but if you have something else, we'd say run it. The ladder, same situation. Given the option, I always recommend people run like a hatch ladder on the back of their vehicle, like especially for like an SUV or a crossover. If you can have any sort of rear mounted ladder that's permanently affixed to the vehicle, they're usually just a lot nicer to use. But you can always purchase that stuff from us at a later date.
Will you be offering installation of the Superlite at your facility?
Yeah, so you can get the Superlite installed here. We're still kind of finalizing that install fee, but just shoot us an email and we'll get you sorted.
Can I mount the Superlite to my small vehicle?
Yeah, so the Superlite is designed to fit with basically any vehicle on the market. The really cool thing about the Superlite is it comes off and on really easily. So if you do have like a pretty small vehicle, you can throw the Superlite on there, roll around, take it off when you're not using it, so you're not rolling around with this giant monstrous tent on something like a Honda Fit. That said, there are a few little specifics that are needed for making sure that it will fit on your vehicle, and that's primarily just looking up roof rack ratings or the rack ratings of your manufacturer's vehicle roof rack. just making sure that the static and dynamic loads are up to what we need to be able to mount this thing on there. So basically the static, typically every roof rack has two different load ratings. One is static, one is dynamic. So your static load rating is like when the tent is on the vehicle and people are inside the tent when you're parked at camp. So that static load rating is going to be you, your significant other, your dog sitting on the roof of this thing at camp. The dynamic load rating is your driving, so your underway load rating. So that's going to be basically just the Superlite, hopefully no occupants, please no occupants, and maybe anything strapped on the roof, like if you're using the surfboard rack, surfboards on top of the Superlite.
Is it okay to have some overhang?
So for vehicle-specific fit questions and kind of like where it's mounted on the vehicle itself, definitely shoot us an email and we'll send you a best practice recommendation guide on how much overhang is allowable fore and aft.
Can I open my rear hatch while the Superlite is mounted on my vehicle?
That is a vehicle-dependent question, but on most vehicles, the answer is yes. So 4Runners, RAV4s, crossovers, that kind of a thing, typically the Superlite can be mounted in a way that that's still available. It also depends a little bit on your roof rack, on how far forward your mounting points are, because you are gonna have to basically adjust the mounting points based on your vehicle roof rack load rating and our recommended best practices.
How does the quick release system work?
So the quick release system is still in development. It'll be available when we start shipping Superlite. It'll be designed to go into vehicles that have roof racks like Front Runner, Prinsu, Rhino rack, all that kind of stuff, or the factory beef rack on the Go Fast Camper's topper or the Go Fast Camper's bed rack that is coming out as well. So, but actual specifics on that are still in development.
How can I mount the Superlite to my truck?
So on a vehicle like a pickup truck, the Superlite can be mounted a couple of different ways. So right here we have one of our space frames from our camper that basically simulates something like a Lightner rack or a Thule or Yakima bed rack system. There's a ton of different bed rack manufacturers out there. So we'd recommend something like that. Or if you wanted to do a lower bed rack, you could potentially mount it where it's hanging slightly off the back based on how long your bed is and the overhang best practices. So TLDR, I would recommend basically a cab height bed rack that allows you to have overhang over the cab, but there are a few other options if you want to send us an email if you have any specific questions on that.
Do you have a low profile mount for the 4Runner?
So we do not make a low profile mount for the 4Runner for this tent, but we do for the platform product line. So that's actually a super, super low profile mount that deletes the antenna, gets it as low as possible to the vehicle. For the Superlite, we recommend mounting to, honestly, factory crossbars or something like a Front Runner rack.
How far away are the tracks from each other and how long are the tracks?
So these aluminum extrusions here are the track system on the bottom of the Superlite that enables the mounting system. So they are 82 inches wide, and then center to center, it's 35 inches apart.
Will the Superlite come with security hardware?
So the Superlite doesn't come with security hardware, but we can recommend the link to purchase it from McMaster Car if you send us an email.
How can I lock the Superlite?
So the Superlite will have a locking interface on the quick release system that we're still working on. The upper portion doesn't lock, it's fabric, so I mean if somebody wanted to break into it, they could just cut it open. We recommend not leaving anything incredibly valuable up there. Don't leave any gold or watches. But in terms of the lower, it'll lock the same way as most of the roof top tents on the market. So either using our quick release system that has locking interface or using a security fastener system. So it's just harder for thieves to try to take it apart.
How does the ladder work?
So I'll grab the ladder. So the ladder will lean up against the honeycomb. Obviously this is not mounted securely anywhere, so it has a little bit of movement. And there'll be a couple aluminum tabs that bolt into here and there around the door. And then basically it'll be a webbing strap system that actually just loops around the ladder, just keeping it leaning against this and secure against your vehicle. So really simple system, works on any side. It'll work on the back or either side.
Can I mount the Superlite on my Rhino rack or Prinsu rack?
Yeah, so the Superlite will mount to Front Runner racks, Prinsu, Rhino rack, basically any extrusion brace crossbar system. So the way that that'll work is the rack system utilizes these T-nuts that are designed to fit into this track and spin 90 degrees and lock down. So basically for the Rhino rack, Prinsu rack, Front Runner, all that kind of stuff, this guy will basically you'll bolt this little billet piece onto that rack, and then you'll take the T-nuts that are supplied from that vendor or from us in the case of beef rack that are like a stud or a little T-nut. And actually, so this is the analog for any sort of roof rack. You'll slide that in. This little part will be attached to the Superlite and basically just pop in place. So like that. And then all you have to do is tighten the hardware down. So just a little adapter to go between any sort of standard extrusion rack or our beef rack, so in the event of like using our topper, to this system. For round bars, crossbars, factory crossbar, that kind of a thing, it's a slightly different system. So it uses these two straps, little billet guys. So we'll use this tube structure just kind of as an analogy here. So same little T-nuts that slide into that extrusion track and basically go around the bar, feed this guy through, which will run up to that track. Let's see if I can get this thread started correctly. There we go. So you'll just do that on both sides and then tighten that to clamp. So when we're talking about security hardware, this would be a good instance of using security hardware. So these 5/16 18 fasteners that run up and grab these T-nuts are totally replaceable security hardware. This distance here is going to basically be dependent on how tall the thing is you're trying to clamp. So for something that's maybe more ovalized, a little bit lower, like a factory Subaru Outback crossbar, we can supply you with a slightly shorter bolt. So we'll actually reach out to you and find out what you're mounting it to in order to give the best recommended mounting interface. So if you're gonna hit us up and say, hey, I'm mounting this thing to my front runner rack, I want the Superlite, we won't even bother sending you this stuff. We'll just send you this kit. These are both of our universal attachment systems. So either one of these are included in the base price of the Superlite.
What's up with the topper I've been seeing on Instagram?
So the topper is really the ultimate solution for mounting the Superlite to a pickup truck. So the topper is the GFC canopy, truck shell, cap, camper shell, whatever you call it. We call them toppers. It's basically our current camper without the pop top on it. So the topper is designed specifically to work with these beef rack crossbars and mount to the Superlite.
How is the Superlite secured when closed?
So there's basically two systems that keep the Superlite cinched and closed. So there's an outer tensioning system that allows you to have adjustable bedding height. So that's what keeps you from having it be 3 inches thick and expanding all the way up to 7. So basically you have this outer hook and loop system. Basically hook it in place, tie it down, get it taut where you need it to be. You don't really have to reef on these things. This is basically just to kind of cinch it down a little bit. So there are 6 of these on the Superlite. And then underneath that, you've got this zipper system that wraps all the way around. So basically, when you go to open or close this thing, you zip it. That basically pops open. So you can run it all the way around. And that's how you'd open it. So basically it's an outer clamshell. This exterior fabric's that's super, super durable, coated 300 denier. That actually fell off the truck when I forgot to tighten the bolts and barely even got scuffed up. Pop that guy open, you've got access to the zipper. Once the tent's actually opened all the way up, you have this potential little rain catch. So if it's gonna rain, just flip it down. It's pretty much that easy. So super simple opening and closure. To close it up again, close that guy up, zip it all the way around, strap it down, hook it in place, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching the FAQ video. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments below. And yeah, hope you like the Superlite.